So if you're new here and you don't know what's going on, my name is Hannah. I'll be leading everybody through a watercolor painting today, and this is what we will be painting. So this is a painting that I did a few weeks ago with my Artistro watercolor set. I'm just going to use my regular watercolor set here because it's the one I'm most comfortable with, but use whatever you have. And it's a really fun painting because I like these dark clouds and the sun rays, and then we're going to do a really fun technique for the water section. This is based on a reference photo that I took in Lake Erie, but it could be an ocean scene. It can be whatever you want it to be. So we're just going to base our painting off of this today. My supplies, I will go over that really quick. This is Strathmore watercolor paper. So you can see the front here, that's what that looks like. These are pretty affordable pads of paper. I use them for my lessons, and they're great. And this is a 9x12 piece of paper taped into a 7x9 rectangle. My watercolor paints are Winsor&Newton, as always. And I just use those. They are professional watercolor paints. You do not have to have professional watercolor paints. Whatever you have is fine. I've got a few brushes here. I've got a large, medium, and a small. So I've got a 10 round, a 4 round, and a 2 round for details. So I'd recommend a large, medium, and a small. If you have one, they don't have to be these exact sizes, but just whatever you have. I like the Princeton Neptune brand if you're looking for a brand. And then this is Christy Rice's brand, Joy of Painting brushes, which I also really like. All of my watercolor supplies, all of my art supplies that I use are in my Amazon storefront and my bio. So if you have any questions about the art supplies that I recommend, you can find them there. And then I'm just using some masking tape from Blick to tape around my paper, and then I'll use it for the horizon line as well. Okay, so after I've said all of that, just the quick little spiel before we get started. This will be an hour-long tutorial. I will try to keep up with everybody's pace. Like, you can let me know in the comments where you're kind of at, if you need another minute or if I'm going too fast. But I do have to kind of keep it moving so that we get done in about 55 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments as well. I do kind of glance up at the comments every now and then, so I may miss some, but I will try to get them all. And then lastly, just be kind to yourself. This is all just for fun. This is for practice and for us to all kind of be together and paint together. So don't be too hung up on how your painting turns out. This is all just for fun, and it should be just good practice regardless. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others, especially if you're new to watercolor, and we'll all have a good time. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is what we always do when we start these paintings, and put a little drop of water in each of our watercolor paints, especially if you're using dry watercolors like me. This just helps to start to dissolve the paint here and gets it ready for painting with. And we will probably not use all of these colors, but it's good to just get them dissolved anyway so that they are ready if we need them. So I'm just using a paintbrush. If you want to be extra fancy, you can use a spray bottle. I don't have a spray bottle, so I just use a paintbrush. Yes, these are posted on YouTube later. My YouTube channel is linked in my bio. If you click that link tree and scroll down, you'll find my YouTube. So you can find it there. Subscribe while you're there. That'll make me happy. And all of the paint and sips are uploaded to YouTube, so you can find the previous ones there as well. Okay, so now that our paint colors are starting to dissolve, we're gonna prep our paper just a little bit. So we're gonna find our horizon line first. I'm gonna put my horizon line about 1/3 of the way up the paper. Usually 1/3 is a good spot to put a horizon line. It's a good, interesting spot. So I'm just gonna do 3 inches because my paper is 9 inches tall. I am using a ruler for this and being a little bit more exact. You do not have to. If you want to just sketch a roughly horizontal line across your paper, that is fine. If you want to be a little more precise about it, you can measure on both sides and then use a piece of masking tape to tape out the horizon line. And this is just so that we can paint the sky, and then we'll be able to take the tape off and get a nice straight horizon line without having to very carefully paint it, if that makes sense. So I've got my horizon line taped out there. Do you recommend using a heat gun to dry between layers? Yes, absolutely. I usually use my hairdryer. My hairdryer lives in here. I hardly ever use it on my hair. It's mostly for my watercolor paintings. And it speeds up stuff so fast. So yeah, I would highly recommend heat gun or hairdryer. Will make your life so much better. Okay. So now, once you've got that horizon line taped out or sketched out, whatever you're doing, we're going to go to our palette here. and mix up the two colors that we're going to use for the sky. We don't have to do much mixing here as long as you have kind of the correct colors. So the first color is Payne's Gray, which is this lovely cool gray color. And I'm just going to find some and put it into my palette, just kind of mix it up a little bit. We're going to keep the colors pretty saturated for now so that they blend out on the water. If you don't have Payne's Gray, black with a little bit of blue mixed in would do perfectly well. It's kind of a cool, like almost blue-toned gray. You can see here what color that kind of is. So something along those lines. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then the other color that we're going to use is ultramarine blue, which is just kind of a nice medium blue. It's one of my favorite colors. I love using this color. I use it in every painting, mixed into something or just on its own. It's a great sky color. All right, so those are our two colors. Whatever you have that's like semi-close is totally fine. It doesn't need to match exactly. Okay, and they're both pretty concentrated on this palette here because we're gonna put a layer of water onto our paper. So we're gonna do a wet on wet technique, which is where our paper is wet and our paint is wet, and we're combining them on the paper. Okay, so whenever you're ready, feel free to watch me on this step or paint with me, whatever you feel more comfortable with, but I will kind of explain what we're doing, do it, and then give you some time to catch up afterwards. So we're going to put a layer of water on the top section, everything above the horizon line, put a layer of clean water from our cup onto this paper. Then we're going to put the gray paint in kind of the top right corner, wherever you want your cloud to be. And then we're going to fill in the rest of it with blue, and then we're going to use a dry brush to kind of add the cloud texture and the sun rays while the paper is still wet. So you got to kind of move through these steps semi-quickly, but again, I will explain all of that and lead you through it, and we will be fine. So, first step, cover your paper with water from your cup, everything above the horizon line. If you're not using tape here, make sure you spend a little bit of time to get a fairly straight horizon line with this water. Once we add paint, it won't go where the water isn't, so if you're not using tape, get yourself a horizon line with the water. Okay, and you want the paper to be fairly saturated. You don't want there to be puddles though, or huge lakes. So I added a little too much water, so I'm gonna dry off my brush and then use it to pick up a little bit of that extra water there, just so it doesn't become a problem once I add the paint. Okay. Then when you're ready, we're going to start with our gray color, and you're going to be brave and just start kind of dotting it into the sky section wherever you want this cloud to be. So I'm going to start with kind of the top right corner, and then I might branch it out down here, maybe a little bit down here, and I'm just kind of using a dotting motion for this so that I get this kind of texture here. Maybe I've got another cloud kind of coming in from the right here. I might change it up from the composition of that original painting. Got another cloud coming in from the right. Maybe one here. Okay. And then once I've got that in, I'm going to switch to my blue paint, and we're going to kind of outline the cloud, leaving a little bit of white space between the blue and the gray paint. And I'm just going to kind of bring that around and start filling in the rest of the sky section. So I'm kind of going around, tracing around that cloud, and then fill in the rest of the sky. And I'm just going to kind of let my brush run out of paint as I get toward the horizon line here, so that it gets lighter at the horizon line. Okay, there it is. So now we're going to use our dry brush to kind of edit what we've done so far, what we've accomplished so far. So what I'm going to do is completely dry off. I'm squeezing my brush between my paper towel, and then I'm going to use that to kind of fluff up the edge of the cloud here. You can take away some of that blue paint, and you're just going to go back to your paper towel every once in a while So I'm just kind of adding some texture to the outside of these clouds here. Okay, once I've done that, I can start adding a little bit of texture within the cloud, again using that dry brush. So I'm just kind of bouncing it around in there, just to add a little bit more texture in there. Same thing over here. And you do want to work somewhat quickly here. Don't feel like you need to make it perfect. It'll turn out even better if you just kind of work quickly and let it happen. Let just random things happen. And add a little texture within that cloud. And then what we can do is go back in with that gray paint, and you can add just a little bit of texture in certain areas, especially where you have dried the paper already. You'll get some nice crisp texture there. These are all just options. Feel free to ignore any and all of my directions for whatever you feel like will do best for your painting. Maybe I'll add a little bit in there. Okay, and then before everything dries, super quick, we're gonna add our sun rays. So I'm just going to pick a spot wherever my sun is. I might put a little dot just to remind me where the sun is. And the sun rays will come radiating out of that spot. So I'm again using my dry brush and dragging, let's see, dragging it through that blue paint there to create these little sun rays. And you can use the side of your brush to kind of blend those out if they're a little too strong. And I think I'm gonna stop right there. I think that's plenty. Don't wanna overdo it. And as long as your paper is wet, you can continue to kind of edit and change whatever you want on here. Mine is starting to dry now because we've got a pretty dry day here in Ohio, so I didn't have very long to mess with this. But if you are in a more humid place, you'll have a little bit more time. Okay, and once it starts to dry, you'll kind of start to mess it up a little bit if you continue working on it. So I would recommend just leaving it alone after a little while, and however it looks is totally fine. And I think I'm pretty happy with that, she says as she continues to mess with it. Okay, I'm gonna just check through the comments, make sure I didn't miss anything while I've been instructing. You guys have a little bit of time to catch up. Yeah, the watercolor always wants to do its own thing. You gotta just kind of let it do, let it do what it wants to do, and just accept whatever it looks like at the end. You can only do so much. Just made my first purchase. Thank you so much. I know it's so hard to stop messing with it. Let it be. Put it down. Let it sit. Have you ever messed up really bad on a painting? Absolutely. Yes. I make bad paintings all the time. Every artist you've ever known has made bad paintings almost all the time. You just kind of get better at accepting the bad paintings and moving on to make another one and try again. Can we spray it if it's drying fast? Yes, you got to be careful, because sometimes if it's already kind of dry and you spray it, you'll get some textures, which is not a bad thing. Textures are fine. You just have to be aware that that's a possibility. So you could get some textures, and you know, it could not look quite right if you do that. So just be careful. But yes, in general, you can use a spray bottle to wet it back down again once your paint starts drying. Another option you have, which I'll just let you know now, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Once it's dry, you can use what's called a lifting technique, and I'll zoom you in for this so you can see a little bit better. So here we are. I've got a detail brush, and it's a little bit damp. I just kind of roll the extra water onto a paper towel, so it's damp but not wet. And then you can kind of just scrub at a certain area for a few seconds, and then quickly use a paper towel and dab at that area, and it'll pick up paint. It's a very slow process. You kind of have to do it a few times, and it'll be somewhat subtle, but you can get some cool textures and highlights from doing that as well. So if your paint dried before you had a chance to fully finish what you were doing, this is an option as well for you to add little cloud textures here like this. Just kind of scrubbing and then lift with a paper towel. Okay. So that's an option for you. All right, we'll come back up here. One more option for you if you are still kind of working on it as well, is to use very light washes and blend them out with water. So this is another way to add a little bit more texture if you want to. You can just use that watered down paint, add kind of a texture there, and then blend it out on one side with some clean water. So if you want to add a little bit more cloud texture kind of within the cloud, you can do that. I would just recommend watering down the paint so that you can build it up slowly rather than using that really strong paint that we were using. And then you can blend out the one side with some clean water. Yes, you can add the rays with that lifting technique that I just showed. It won't quite look the same, and so that's just something that you'll have to practice with the sort of speed that your paint dries and everything, but you absolutely can add these rays once the paint dries with that lifting technique that I just showed. So again, you're just going to use a damp brush. You don't have to use a super small brush. I am just for now, since that's what my painting would need, but you can use a larger brush and just scrub, scrub, scrub with a damp brush and then quickly lift with a paper towel. Okay. So those are some options for you to kind of render your clouds a little bit further. We're going to move on, but that is always an option for you if you would like to work on those maybe after the session is over. You can continue to finalize those clouds. When you're ready, take off the tape if you're using it at the horizon line, and we are going to get started with the water section. I missed the regular technique to make the rays. Could you repeat? Yeah, so when all the paint was still wet, we were just using a dry brush to pick up the rays from the paper. So when the paper is still wet, when the paint's still wet, the dry brush will lift the pigment. So that's how we were doing that before. Okay, so our next step is to add the water. I'll go back to our reference photo here. So we've done the sky part. You can, again, like I said, you can always go back to render that sky part a little bit more. This one I left a little bit more abstract, but you can always add more details if you want. We're gonna move on to the ocean part. So we're gonna mix a couple of colors. You can clean off what's on your palette now. We don't need it anymore. And while we're doing this, I will just mention that for these sessions are always free, but I do take tips if you are enjoying it and feel willing to give me a tip or a little gift. If you click on the link in my bio and scroll down to the bottom, there's a little tab called Tip Jar, and that makes it really easy to send me a tip, whatever you feel comfortable with. It is always appreciated. You can also check out my Etsy shop in my bio as well if you want to support me that way. All of my paintings that I sell are on my Etsy shop. Okay, so for these, for the ocean, or the watercolors, I should say, we're gonna do Payne's Gray, so same gray that we used for the sky, and then Sap Green, which is kind of a very nice, pretty, neutral green. And maybe just a touch of brown, just a little bit. So that was Payne's Gray, Sap Green, and just a little bit of brown. And you can kind of change up the proportions of these colors as you want. So you can make it more of a gray water, you could make it more green, you could make it a little bit brown if you want to. You could even add a little bit of blue if you want and make it a little bit more blue. So you can really edit kind of the proportions of all of those colors if you wish. And then we're going to make a light version of that. So same exact colors in another pan, but just add lots of water. I might add a little extra green and blue to this lighter color as well. So we're just going to continue to add water to this one. I can swatch them for you. So there's that light version. And then here's the darker version. Okay. So when you're ready, go to your paper, and we're going to start with the light color. So the one we added lots of water to. You're going to load that up on your brush. I'm going to use a large brush for this because I have a large piece of paper, but use whatever brush you're comfortable with. And once you've loaded up the color, touch your paper towel a little bit to take off a little bit of that color. We don't want our brush to be fully saturated with paint. And you're going to use the very side of your brush and just kind of lightly scrape it along the paper so that it kind of breaks and has this texture. You can use the point of your brush to paint in carefully the horizon line if you'd like to. But then for everything else, I want you to use the side of the brush and just very, very lightly scrape it along the paper so you get that sort of broken texture. So I'm using the very side of my brush. I've even changed how I hold the brush so that I can really get the side of the brush onto the paper. And you can kind of let it run out of paint as you work your way down. Get some really nice texture when you do that. And then you can grab a little bit more, keep going. All the way down to the bottom. Okay. Move that up so you can see a little better. Okay, so then I'm going to keep going with this light color and carefully just kind of continue to layer some more on top. So you're going to keep doing that dry brushing technique, but you can kind of add a little bit more value in certain areas. So we're starting to kind of develop waves here. You can see this part right here kind of looks like a wave, because it's where there's been a lot of paper left over that's not covered in paint. So we can just kind of try to develop some very abstract, it doesn't need to be super obvious, points where there's just darker water and lighter water. You can transition to using the point of your brush as well if you'd like to. We're just going to keep these strokes horizontal as much as possible. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'll give you a second to catch up if you need it. Let me know where you're at. Is this your palette you're using? No, I'm using my Winsor&Newton watercolors. I use those for my lessons just because I'm most familiar with them and because I'm doing a lot of stuff right now, like talking and instructing. I like to use the paints that I'm most familiar with just because it takes that part out of my brain. And while we're waiting as well, I do just want to let you guys know that I have my watercolor book, Watercolor Wanderlust is what it's called. It is coming out on April 2nd, so just 6 or 5 weeks, I think now. And it is basically these live tutorials in a book form. And I'm super proud of it. And if you're enjoying this lesson, you'd probably enjoy my book. So if you feel like pre-ordering my book, I would so appreciate it. It means so much to me. I'm trying to get up to the Amazon bestseller list, which means 500 pre-orders. And we're on our way there. But I do just want to keep letting you guys know that it's coming out, and to support it if you have the means and interest too. I also have some bonus material if you happen to pre-order. And it will be emailed to you if you pre-order and you email your receipt to this email right here. You can just screenshot this so that you don't have to memorize this email. You'll get the bonus adventures. So it's 3 extra landscapes that are coming out in this PDF form that aren't going to be available in the book. And you'll get the PDF right now. So you'll have 3 landscapes to start with before the book even comes out. So that's exciting. So again, I would really appreciate it if you feel like pre-ordering my book. It would mean a lot to me. So if you click the link in my bio, you can find it there. And then if you do pre-order, email this email with your receipt and you'll get the bonus adventures. And thank you so much if you've already pre-ordered. If you've already pre-ordered and you haven't emailed that email, do it. And you'll get the bonus adventures as well. So thank you for letting me plug that. It is important to me and I'm very excited for it to come out. So appreciate it. Okay. Now that I've given you some bonus adventures are awesome. Thank you so much. I'm glad you like them. I really like those projects that are in the bonus adventures. We just kind of, we had to cut some. So we just kind of picked the ones that seemed like, I guess, but it was mostly kind of random. I actually told my publisher to just choose 3 because I couldn't pick. All right. So here we go. We're going to switch to our darker color now. I'm again continuing to use this larger brush. If you'd like to switch to a slightly smaller brush, you can. But we're going to do the same thing. Load up that dark color onto your paintbrush and use the side of your brush to scrape along the paper. Again, I'm going to use the tip of my brush to paint in the horizon line. But besides that, I'm going to use the side of my brush. So side of my brush, scraping along the paper, and I'm going to try and concentrate this in the areas of the water that we have already kind of established as the darker areas. So kind of here for me, these will be different on your paper too. Maybe a little bit down here. And then you can use the tip of the brush if you want to add some horizontal lines. Just as some extra little ripples, a little extra texture there maybe. Get that all the way in the paper, in the screen. Okay. And as you work, it'll dry, and then you can use that same color to continue to layer on top of whatever you've done so far. Maybe I'll do a little bit over here. And then down here at the bottom, I think I'll do more of like this kind of detail. So I'm using the tip of the brush, and I'm just kind of tracing underneath some light spots here so that it'll look kind of like a wave breaking on the shore. You can kind of mix up the textures here. But just keep adding until your brain says keep going. That's when you should probably stop. Because we don't want to overwork, but we do want to, I think that's turning out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I might just kind of break up the middle of this a little bit. Step back, stop painting for a second. Figure out how it looks, and then you can keep going if you want to. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave my water just looking like that. Feel free to continue. I'm going to give you a minute or two. to keep working on it. Do whatever you need to do. Feel free to ask me any questions that you have in the comments while we're waiting. And also, thank you so much for the likes. We're already up to 19,000, which is really cool. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yes, it is free, although I do take tips. So if you'd like to leave me a tip, click on the link in my bio, scroll down to the little tab called Tip Jar. Always appreciated. Do you do these paint and sips often? I do them fairly regularly. I used to do them every weekend, and I got burned out on doing that. So I've just been kind of doing them every couple of weeks or so recently. And always this time, always Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So you can always come check my page, and you'll see an announcement whether it is that Saturday or not. Yes, this is watercolor. I don't really use acrylics because they dry too fast for me, so I don't really like them, but I know a lot of people paint some really amazing stuff with acrylics. I used to paint with you, but haven't painted in so long. Glad you came up with my For You page. Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Amazing teacher. Thank you so much. First time I find you on a live. Well, welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I just bought watercolors and painted 3 flowers. Nice. Well, now paint an oceanscape. Uh-oh. I hope I'm not frozen. Let me know if I'm frozen for everybody else too. I'm talking and I'm moving. There's just not anything going on the screen. I'm not painting anything tomorrow. I do these. Okay, perfect. Glad it's not everybody. I do these paintings every Saturday. Not every Saturday. On Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I just do them every couple of weeks or so. Just pre-ordered. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You're the best. Thank you so much. Not a huge landscape, oceanscape fan, but this is gorgeous. Not as difficult as I thought. Thank you so much. I'm glad you think so. Oceanscapes, I love this texture. This texture changed the game for me when I was painting water because it just makes it so sparkly and so fun. And it's very low effort, so it's really nice. I love that texture. So even if this one didn't turn out as well for you, if this is your first time trying it, keep using that texture because it helps so much when you're painting water. Okay, so what do I do to make the water less olive green? I would recommend adding some blue to it. Add blue or like a cool toned gray, a blue toned gray, something like that. Okay, so we're gonna, last thing is paint in the beach here. So we're gonna use a dark color here. It's kind of like a grayish brown. So I'm gonna mix together gray and brown. So I've got Payne's gray and Van Dyke brown, and I want more brown than gray, just a little bit. So it's kind of like a dark brown. Something like this. And we're not going to add too much water to this mixture. We want it to be pretty dark. Yes, this will be on my YouTube channel later today, hopefully. Sometimes the upload speed is a little questionable, so sometimes it's the next day, but it'll be up. Did you just add water to each paint? No, I didn't. I just, it already had water in it, so I just used it. So that's the sand color that we have. What color is best to represent white kind of sand, like on the Baltic Sea? A very, very watered down brown or yellow ochre is good for white sand. You just got to add a ton of water to your paint. Like so much, like you barely have paint in there. Okay, so for the sand part, pre-ordered your book. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. So for the sand, we're going to continue using our dry brush texture. This is going to give us that kind of beach area where the sand kind of blends into the water. And if you want, I just want to mention this now, you can leave a little puddle of water around the sand. You just have to kind of plan for that in advance. So I'm going to start kind of in the bottom corner here and just use the side of my brush again, and I'm still using horizontal strokes. And I'm just going to kind of develop a beach. I'm just going to kind of let whatever happens happen. We can add in like a sandbar up here. I might even like trace around where this water is landing on the beach. And you can just kind of leave little pockets using this dry brushing texture of the paper showing through, and that'll kind of look like water sparkling on the wet sand. So I'm just going to kind of continue doing that, working my way across. Maybe adding a little bit more on this side. And then you can go back in with the point of your brush and kind of finalize everything. You can add a little bit more texture if you want to. As it starts to dry, you can add some spots that are darker by just layering the same color over the top. Using that dry brush texture to kind of feather out some detail there. Lots of options for you, and you're welcome to kind of do whatever feels right for your painting. And then remember to just leave it alone, which is where I'm at now. I gotta leave it alone. Yes, I do still upload these later. This will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. If you go to the link in my bio, my YouTube channel is linked in there. You'll find it. Subscribe while you're there. Makes me happy. I've got some YouTube videos coming out pretty soon as well, which I hardly ever do. So subscribe. So a dry brushing texture is just dipping a dry brush into the watercolor. No, that's a good question though. It's kind of a misnomer because it's not really a dry brush. It is just a less wet brush. So for example, I'll just do this on my scrap piece of paper. For example, if I were to like completely load up my brush with paint and I paint it onto this scrap piece of paper, it's fully filled in, right? But if I take off some of the paint and I'm on my paper towel, I just take off a bunch of the paint here. And so there's still a little paint left in my brush, but not a lot. And I scrape it onto the paper. This is what a dry brushing texture is. So a dry brush is like a less wet brush and you're scraping it onto the paper so that you get this texture. This texture is great for the water like we've done today, or for like rock formations, various like outdoor textures and stuff. We'll use this texture. So it's good to know it's not really a dry brush because there's still paint on it. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. All right. Can't wait for my book. I think it's coming in April now. Yeah, it'll be coming out. My book is coming out on April 2nd. So that's when all the pre-orders will ship as well. And that's when you can get it like in any bookstore as well. It'll be in most bookstores on April 2nd, which is super exciting. But if you pre-order, you'll get those extra landscapes that I was talking about. So make sure you check out the link in my bio. The very top link in my link tree is my book pre-order, so you'll find it there. Yes, I am on Patreon. That is linked to my bio as well. I do exclusive tutorials like this one for my patrons. So if you'd like to join, you can do that as well. We're taking off the tape here. Will you sell this painting? This one will be up for sale once I finish this pad of watercolor paper. I usually just upload these in batches, but the reference painting that we used for today, I'll show it here in just a second. This one is actually already on sale on my Etsy shop. So if you go to my link tree and go to my Etsy shop, you'll find this for sale there. You can buy it if you want it. Feel free to. That would make my day. But this one will be uploaded probably in a month or two. And here we are, taking off the tape. So I really hope you enjoyed this painting. These are really fun paintings to do. The simple seascapes are great practice. So if you aren't quite happy with the painting that you did today, I'm still very proud of you for doing it. And you can always practice this more. This tutorial will be uploaded to my YouTube channel later, so you can find it there. All right, I got to go through my plugs one more time since you're a captive audience and you're here to support me. So my book pre-order, which is basically these live tutorials in book form, I think you'd all really like it, is available now. The book comes out April 2nd, but pre-order is available now. If you do pre-order, you get some bonus material sent from me personally. I am actually the one who sends these. So if you send your pre-order receipt to this email, you'll get those bonus adventures and you'll be able to get started on those landscapes before the book even comes out. So please feel free to pre-order. Again, if you go click the link in my bio, you'll find my Patreon, my Etsy shop. Please check out my Etsy shop if you'd like to support me that way. I've got lots of paintings on there, bookmarks, postcards, prints, all that kind of stuff. And then I've also got my tip jar, so if you'd like to leave me a little tip or a gift, these sessions are always free, but I do really appreciate tips. So you can go to my the link, scroll all the way down, there's a little button called tip jar, and that makes it really easy to do that. And finally, this lesson will be uploaded to YouTube. So feel free to check out my YouTube channel, also linked in my bio. All of what I'm talking about, just click on that link tree in my bio and you'll find what I'm speaking of. However you choose to support me is wonderful, even if it's just giving me a follow and a like on videos. It always makes a big difference and it means the world to me because it helps me continue to do this full time. So I do really appreciate all of your support, no matter how you choose to support me. It is always really appreciated. So thank you so much for whatever you choose to do. And here's our final painting for today. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll do a little face-to-face debrief at the end. This will be, again, on my YouTube channel. And then if you do feel like sharing what you painted today with me, I always love to see your paintings. So if you want to DM me on Instagram is probably the best way to reach me. Same handle as TikTok. And if you choose to put it on your Instagram story, tag me and I'll do a little gallery in my Instagram story of everyone's paintings. So we can see everybody. But if you don't feel comfortable publishing it publicly, you can always just privately DM me and I'd love to see your painting. I can't always respond to everybody's messages, but I do try to look at all of them. And again, thank you all so much for being here. Let me know if you have any questions. Oh, the birds! Oh my God, we forgot the birds. Wait, you're right. Oh no, that's my bad. Love this one. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate it. That's my sister, everybody. All right, we're gonna add some birds. If people have already left, I'm sorry, but we're gonna add some birds. Okay, so take some Payne's Gray or black, whatever you choose, a dark paint color, and your detail brush. And get some concentrated paint on there. And the key to birds is to not add too many. It's super tempting, but don't overbird your painting. And I like to do the classic V shape, but just a little bit more realistic. So I'll do like a sort of wide V like this and add just a tiny, tiny dot in the middle of that V to look like the body of the bird. Okay. On some others, I'll do a very sharp V, but again, add a little tiny dot, like kind of almost a dash, I should say, at the bottom of that V to look like the body of the bird. And then we're just gonna kind of, as randomly as possible, spread them out around the paper. So maybe I'll have one here and a couple, I'll have just like a couple next to each other. I like to change the angle of the birds as well. Make some of them way smaller so I can make a super tiny one right there, teeny tiny. And then I can make like a really much larger one here. You can even like widen out the wings at the base of the V if you want to on those larger birds. So the key is lots of variety and to not add so many that it's looking like an apocalypse. So I'll add one there. I like to add like little pairs of them going around here. And I think I'll add one here and then I'll be done. I heard once that like 7 birds was a good amount for a painting. You don't want to add more than 7. I like to add a few more than 7, but you know, it just don't add like 100, you know. When I click on Amazon for USA, it just shows me the info, but doesn't take me to pre-order. That's odd. You might have to do a little digging around there. Maybe just search it on Amazon instead of using the link, and I will check out the link and see if it's working. But thank you for letting me know. Okay, that's enough birds. We're not going to overbird the painting. And then once you zoom out, it's just like a very subtle, like, oh, there's birds. Look at that. But it's not like an apocalypse, you know? All right, so that is actually the end of the painting. And I can sign the painting now. Remember to put the date on your painting. I always suggest that because it's always good to look back and see when you did the paintings. You can see your progress. Can I order your book in Belgium? Yes, you can. You can order the book internationally, I believe. The release date is 6 weeks after the US and Canada release date, so you'll just get it a little bit later, but you will get it, and you'll still get the bonus materials as well if you pre-order, no matter where you're pre-ordering from. Okay, so there it is. Good job, everybody. Birdmageddon. Exactly. We don't like that. We don't want a plague of birds. That's never good. All right. That's actually the end of the painting. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please check out the link in my bio for everything that I talked about today. My book pre-order, my Etsy shop, my tip jar, all of that is in there. I've already gotten a couple tips, which I very much appreciate if you guys are on here still. And give me a follow, give me a like on everything, and tune back in a couple Saturdays probably for the next one. And I'll see you guys there. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend and a good couple weeks till I see you again.